Let's look at the types of separations. We have two types of separations. There is voluntary separation and then involuntary separation. Voluntary separation, it occurs when an employee decided for personal or professional reasons to end their relationship with the employer. And this can be through resignation and voluntary retirement scheme. So voluntary, it's when the employee, him or herself, decides that they do not need to work with the organization anymore. They decide to end the relationship with the employer, and it can be through resigning and voluntary retirement scheme. Retirement is the point where a person stops employment completely. They feel like they can no longer work for someone else, so they retire and they decide to do other things. The factors that lead to retirement, they include healthy status, when your health cannot handle working, financial circumstances, when you feel like you have enough money that can take care of you until further notice. Then work-life balances, when you feel like you want to balance work and life, you've overworked, so it's time to enjoy life. Then policy contests, whereby it's a policy that at 50 you must retire. Labor market demand, when there is no demand for your services anymore in the market. Then attachment to the conditions of work and unpaid responsibilities, when you work and you're always not getting paid, you can decide to retire. And then involuntary occurs when an employer decides to terminate its relationship with the employee due to economic necessity and poor fit between the employee and the organization. And this includes dismissals, layoffs, rate sizing, retrenchment, and outplacement. So involuntary separation, it's from the employer side. It's the employer that decides to terminate the relationship with the employee. Then for the voluntary, it is from the employee side. It is the employee that decides to terminate the relationship with the employer. So involuntary, it's when the employee does not want to leave, that does not want to be separated from the job, but the employer decides to end the relationship between them. And it can be through them being dismissed, laid off, rate sized, retrenchment, and then outplacement. Let's look at the involuntary separations. Dismissal is where an employer chooses to require the employee to leave, generally for a reason which is the fault of the employee. If you do something that you are not supposed to do, they dismiss you. For example, in World Vision, when you're a worker of World Vision, you are not supposed to, as a woman, you are not supposed to get pregnant before you're officially married. So if you get pregnant before you being engaged or officially married, they dismiss you. So it is where the employer chooses to require the employee to leave, generally for a reason which is the fault of the employee. Then another one is layoff. Layoff is the temporary suspension or permanent termination of employment of an employee or a group of employees for business reasons. They lay you off because of business reasons. For example, the decision that certain positions are no longer necessary, or when business slow down occurs, when the business is making lower profits compared to other periods, and they cannot be able to pay salaries to all workers, they decide to lay off some. And when they remove certain positions from the organization, they decide to lay off such employees.